Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a pretty stark and provocative text, the Sovereign Codex. Now, this thing is all about a radical kind of personal ownership, a really clear-eyed way of looking at how the world actually works. So let's just jump right in. Everything, and I mean the entire philosophy, kicks off right here with this one powerful idea. It's about refusing to be a passive consumer. You see, it's not about just taking the apple that's offered to you. It's about building the source of the apples yourself. And think about it. You see these apples everywhere, right? Self-help books, online courses, those big flashy keynote speeches. The Codex argues that these things promise you mastery, but what they really do is trap you in this loop of just consuming more and more, stuffing your head with info that never really leads to actual power or change. It's knowing without doing. Okay, so who came up with these ideas and, why should we even listen? Well, this is key. This philosophy was not born in some cozy ivory tower. The author, a guy named Jonathan Kayomba, makes one thing absolutely crystal clear. His ideas were not dreamed up in comfort. He's very direct about it. He says this was all forged in extreme hardship and that these laws are the direct result of having to survive. And this is what's so interesting. He lays out his personal history from being an orphan in Zambia, literally barefoot, bones through skin, all the way to where he is now. And he presents this entire journey as his proof of work. It's his way of saying, don't just listen to my ideas. Look at my life. I live this stuff, so I know it's real. So once that credibility is on the table, the Codex starts to lay out its map of the world. And let me tell you, it's a very specific, very structured map. Rule number one of this world is you have to accept that the system has rules. And money, well, it's not good or evil. It's just a neutral tool. It's the mechanism. It's both the lock and the key. And the Codex is blunt about it. Complaining about the lock gets you nowhere. The only path forward is to figure out how to use the key. And this is just a brilliant illustration of how the game is structured. The world is basically a club with 4 different levels. At the bottom, you've got the line, people waiting to get in. Most of us live on the floor. We're the consumers, playing by the rules someone else made. Then you have the booth, where you're insulated and the rules start to get a little flexible. But the real power? That's at the table. That's where the architects sit, the people who actually write the rules for everybody else. So if the world is a club, how in the world do you move from the line all the way to the table? Well, the Codex lays out some pretty clear laws for how to build something that actually lasts. And this is the foundation for everything. The real currency isn't one big, flashy move. It's consistency. The Codex calls this the ultimate proof of work. A single grand gesture, that's just noise. But sustained, repeated action, day in, day out, that's what builds real infrastructure. That's what builds value. And that brings us to this critical difference in mindset. On one side, you have the gambling mindset. The Codex calls this poverty's loop. Risking everything on one big score, which usually leads to a cycle of winning big and then collapsing. But the sovereign's path, totally different. It's about slow, deliberate investment, building quietly, and only risking the things that are truly expendable. Which leads to this fascinating, kind of mind-bending paradox. The Codex points out that as you move up through those tiers we talked about, the performance of wealth totally flips on its head. The truly wealthy people, the ones sitting at the table, they often hide their strength. They live with a kind of simplicity that's the total opposite of the flashy consumption you see on the floor. And this quote just nails the end goal. It's not about luxury toys like yachts, no. True sovereignty is about grounded, self-sustaining infrastructure. We're talking assets that pay for themselves and are totally free from debt. It is all about stability, not about showing off. Now, to make all this super tangible, the Codex offers this simple model. And look, it's not really about lawn mowers, obviously. It's a blueprint. Step 1, find a demand. Step 2, get the supply to meet it. 3, make a very precise offer. Then, and this is key, you stack the capital, you don't spend it. You watch, you expand, and you repeat the cycle. You turn a simple action into real, solid infrastructure. Okay, so let's get into the final part of this. We're moving beyond just strategy now and into the kind of mindset you need to see the world clearly and to hold on to your sovereignty once you've actually built it. This might be one of the most powerful and, frankly, bleakest ideas in the whole text. The argument is that death is just a neutral fact. It happens. But society can't accept that. Instead, it caramelizes death. It coats it in a story, in a narrative that always serves some other agenda, whether that's making a profit or gaining control. And the modern music industry is a perfect example. An artist dies, that's the neutral event. But what happens immediately? Their legacy gets repackaged for sale. Posthumous albums drop, the estate starts selling merch. The story is preserving their legacy, but the reality is often just preserving a revenue stream. So ultimately, this whole philosophy is about stripping away all of those illusions, all those caramelized stories, so you can focus on what is fundamentally real. And according to the Codex, there are only 3 things you can be absolutely certain of. The only territory you ever truly own is the experience you have between your birth and your death. And so this whole thing doesn't end with some neat little answer. It ends with the final choice the Codex puts right in front of you. The game, the club, the final table, it all exists. So the question it leaves you with is, what are you going to do about it? You have to decide your next move.